President Cyril Ramaphosa will address the nation at 8:30. He's expected to announce changes to his cabinet. It's believed that earlier this evening, Ramaphosa met with the ANC and alliance leaders to discuss the imminent action. This follows public calls for accountability following government's failure to adequately address the recent unrest. eNCA will bring you that announcement live at 8:30. Well, the ANC's National Working Committee is pretty chuffed with government's handling of the coronavirus pandemic. After meeting, it's released a statement commending efforts to speed up the vaccination program. Of course, the party also being asked questions about a cabinet reshuffle. No real answers earlier today, but let's try to get some now. Pule Mabe, the national spokesperson for the organization, joining us in studio. Pule, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. So the president has released this statement saying he will address the nation at 8:30 about his cabinet. Were you spoken to, consulted beforehand?
It is not even necessary for that because it is the prerogative of the president to set up the national executive. There is always engagement. When we meet in the National Working Committee, we do from time to time reflect on the work of cabinet, the need for reinforcement to make sure that we are able to deliver on the sort of promises that we have made to the South African population when we presented our manifesto at the 2019 elections.
Yeah, so any hints which cluster is going to be affected? Because it's pretty obvious to some of us.
Shahan, I guess we'll have to allow the president that space. The announcement that he's going to be making will be necessary to take the country further forward. It does appear that necessary assessment have been done on the kind of capacities required to be able to take the work of the national executive further forward. But remember, the national executive, in the work that it implements all the time, it's a program drawn out of the manifesto of the African National Congress as the governing party. The president exercises that prerogative to then make a determination on the kind of men and women that he will need to be able to assist him to discharge that responsibility.
So I would say it because I know you can't. The security cluster, of course, has been scrutinized because of the recent unrest. Whether or not they handle the situation adequately is up for debate. Many would argue not the case. And that's why the security cluster ministers are likely to be affected in this cabinet reshuffle. If that's the case, is that the right move?
Well, without even going to which ministry is affected or not, the statement of the National Working Committee read out by the Deputy Secretary General of the African National Congress today did emphasize on the need to build the much needed capacity within that cluster as well. Actually, we did say that more adequate support ought to be given to our security forces to make sure that in situations like the ones that we've experienced in the past few weeks, they are able to respond timeously and to the benefit of citizens, so that citizens are not seen to be taking the law into their own hands when there's what could be seen or perceived as a delayed reaction from our own security forces. So that kind of an observation, the ANC was honest. We have made that observation. It is there in the statement. We have reflected on it in the National Working Committee.
Yeah, so you're talking about support. Are you talking at ground level here with more boots on the ground, or are you talking about the ministers who failed to do their jobs?
Well, I mean, it could really be on a multiple kind of areas, ensuring that you have got sufficient manpower to be able to do the work, making sure that you build much needed coherence. I mean, our cadres in the security cluster are working together. They have been out there to make sure that where there's misunderstanding in terms of the messages that they are sending out there, they try and hold the fort together. What is important is that the ANC was seen to be united on the ground. Our own cadres, the national chairperson of the African National Congress, was out in Vosloorus meeting with those that were concerned, those that would have participated in the lootings and all of that, discouraging them from such activities. Structures of the ANC were seen taking to the malls, beginning to participate in numerous cleaning campaigns, working on making sure that they safeguard their own malls and all of that. I mean, our own Comrades in the NEC were also deployed in the National Executive. Comrade Zizi, Comrade Mbalula, Comrade Lamola, Comrade Mamuluku Kubai, and many others. Comrade Barbara, the Treasurer General, was also out in the Val. Many of our comrades, Comrade Bekitele himself was in KwaZulu-Natal, Comrade Ayanda Dlodlo, Comrade Nosi Viwe, and almost all of the comrades who are in cabinet who were seized with what had to be happening on the ground. They were out there. Today, Comrade Lindiwe Zulu was still out talking about the social relief measures that we are undertaking through this social relief that will start, that people can start applying for effective from tomorrow.
Yeah. So you said that it was very important that the security cluster ministers work together, and you said they did. But there was lots of back and forth between these ministers. I mean, Ayanda Dlodlo was saying that she gave Bekitele information. He refused to accept that she gave him information that helped with the unrest. So you have very important figures within the party and our government who are speaking against each other, basically not cooperating, which is why we're here, which is why we actually need a cabinet reshuffle.
Well, Shahan, I must say that the situation that we experienced over the past few weeks is one unseen since 1994. Our cadres have since ensured that they put up a united front to be able to deal with whatever misunderstanding that might have been created by their own utterances. The NWC has reflected on this, and we are happy that they have been able to shape up and deal with whatever areas of misunderstandings that might have played themselves out in the public.
As well as the misunderstandings, these were ministers talking against each other, and they were very blatant about it. Our reporters asked Bekitele if he received intelligence from Ayanda Dlodlo several times, and to our cameras, on record, he persistently said no. So we don't know who's lying and who's telling the truth, but we can move on from that, because we're going to go back and forth on it, right? So let's talk about your discussions. I know you can't reveal the information about what the changes are, but are you happy with what you've heard about the changes?
Any intervention that the president makes, we always welcome, because we know that he acts always at all times in the interest of the people of South Africa, to make sure that there is a stability in cabinet and to allow the national executive to be able to function optimally and do its own work.
Mm. And when you talk about action against your members, let's move the discussion then to those who could have been involved in the unrest. Because you say very clearly in your statement from the NWC that action will be taken against members who had any role in the looting, in the rioting, etc. So what sort of action will you take, and when will we hear about these people who action has been taken against? Because I spoke to you about this a couple of weeks ago and mentioned Jacob Zuma's daughter, who was seen as one of the people inciting violence. She's a member of the ANC. Have you taken any action against her yet?
Well, of course, I mean, our provincial and regional structures will have to give us reports. They were seized with conducting numerous investigations to check what would have been the role of known members of the African National Congress in good standing, and make sure that if those members were effectively involved in inciting or instigating the kind of activities we saw over the past few weeks, action could be seen to be taken as well, because those activities brings the organization into disrepute, especially where members of the organization are accused to be involved in such actions.
Yeah.
Because the ANC has got an important duty. One, to lead society. Two, to make sure that we unite our people, that in our own articulations and expressions, we do not incite violence, we do not spark racism, we forge the unity of our people. Mm. That's why the ANC exists. It exists to unite our people and ultimately contribute towards the building of a national democratic society.
Have those disciplinary processes started, though?
Hence I said that we will be able to get those reports from provinces. I'm aware that actions are being taken on a daily basis by our provincial and regional structures. I would not know who are these individual members that they have acted upon until such time that such reports come to the National Executive Committee.
All right, let's talk about the COVID-19 pandemic. This statement makes it seem as if everything's pretty peachy in South Africa. In fact, you say you commend the government for the work it's doing in the fight against COVID-19. I've spoken to several experts, including the co-chair of the Ministerial Advisory Committee, who says our vaccination program is not good enough and that we're not going to avoid a fourth and fifth wave at this rate. So how do you commend government on a good vaccination program?
Well, if you look at the numbers of those that have been vaccinated is growing on a daily basis. I mean, I have visited numerous vaccine sites, and when you ask those that work there, they will tell you that the numbers we achieved yesterday were far better than the ones we'd have had the previous day. So more education is required. We need to encourage our people to vaccinate, and we need to make them realize that vaccination is the only way through which we'll be able to achieve herd immunity. We need to inoculate a larger number of our people in the population so that we can achieve that the herd immunity we need. I mean, there was scarecrows created, false news jumping up and down, scaring people on the need to take vaccines. But on a daily basis, people are beginning to realize that the only way that they will get out of this trouble is through vaccines. I mean, if you go to a province like Limpopo, which I had gone to the previous week, in some of the communities you find that almost the entire community, those that qualify to vaccinate, have actually vaccinated. Actually, they get surprised if you tell them that, no, I'm from Gauteng, I'm still here to get my jab. But so we need to work even with yourselves in the media to educate our people on this vaccination efforts, because it is only through that we will be able to defeat this pandemic.
But you're making it sound as if we have a large vaccine hesitancy. The reality is that we don't have enough vaccines. And that's where the problem comes in, right? Because you can't commend a government who's still waiting for vaccines to vaccinate people, because lots of people are being turned away. In fact, when I went for my first jab, I was turned away the first time I went. They said they were out of stock. So it's about meeting demand. And when you compare something so bad at the start and now say we are vaccinating 160,000 people a day, there's no comparison because the beginning was so bad. So saying it's good now doesn't really stand.
Well, I think, Shahan, what's important is that we need to also, perhaps the Department of Health needs to do more of this, to educate people, publish all these different vaccine sites. I mean, there's a vaccine site just here in Gauteng. It's just a drive-through. You don't have to even make an appointment. I went there, got my jab. There are many other sites like that. So you need to know that if I can't get my vaccine here because this is in a populous area, where else can I go closer to where I live? So we just need to make sure that these vaccine sites are widely published. People can be aware of those. And we must allow for many of these walk-ins. Because if people are going to be sitting and waiting to get an SMS on when they can go and get their jab, it's not helpful. People must know that they can now go to walk-in sites and get their own vaccines. I mean, I got my vaccine. I went to a drive-through. Yeah. And I can tell you now, even when I went there on Saturday, went back there again on Monday, and there was no one who was turned back there.
Yeah.
So it could have been that in the beginning, because yourselves in the media were amongst the lucky ones. You know, you were like teachers and all other. No, you were.
No, we weren't.
You were.
No,
you were. I mean, we had.
Let's not peddle misinformation about the media.
We had to wait for our age to be called before we could go in. But the point I'm trying to make is that
we got an email from GCIS 3 weeks ago that the media could now register. I did not even get my vaccine through that media registration. I was there because of my age. So there's no privilege when it comes to the media about vaccines.
No, I'm not saying privilege. I wouldn't say it's privilege. The point I'm trying to amplify is that it could have been that at the time, the 3 weeks ago, when the media would have been allowed to start going in for their jabs, there could have been those kind of stock shortages. But we have since seen that most of these vaccination sites are opening up. People are going in, they are getting their jabs. I mean, there are fewer cases of people having to turn back from vaccination sites. We in the African National Congress are even driving our own campaign, of ensuring that we encourage our structures, our members, to vaccinate. Once they're vaccinated, they must become vaccination ambassadors so that they drive that message. They must go house to house in the normal door-to-doors that they do to check if in their own streets people have taken the jabs. And the ANC is doing this to reinforce the work of government. I mean, every time when there's an increase in numbers, the President of the Republic goes out to address the nation, to either increase the alert levels or to announce the measures of relief that are being undertaken. I mean, if we can't commend our government for that.
Yeah.
I mean,
not communication. We shouldn't commend government for communicating with the citizens. I mean, that's their job.
No, we're not necessarily commending them for communicating with citizens. We are commending them for the efforts that they are putting forward. Social relief, the many other relief packages that they've put in the tourism sector and different other sectors. The temporary employment relief scheme that they've put, TERS, quite important. I mean, many people who would have survived through the tourism sector have now had to have their business folding up. There is TERS assisting them. Many others who are unemployed in communities are now being part of this 350 social relief. There are numerous other packages that government, I mean, there's even a tax break that people have been given. So it is only a caring government that acts in that way to make sure that even under this conditions of distress, citizens are still able to go on with their lives.
Those measures are a consequence of our government's handling of the pandemic, right?
No, I wouldn't really agree, Shahan.
You don't have to agree because you are representing the ANC.
No, I don't think it's really that. I mean, here we are confronted by a pandemic of unknown proportions. Acting in the manner that we did, I mean, early in the days, we all thought that social distancing, sanitizing, wearing our masks, avoiding larger crowds could be the only cure. Along the way, we realized that to actually achieve the inoculation we need, our people must now take vaccines. In the ANC, we began speaking against vaccine nationalism, against superpowers who wanted to make sure that they vaccinate their populations first and only give us remnants of those vaccines. And the President of the Republic has been going out even to the G8 to canvass for the need to make sure that vaccines are also made available to third world countries.
Yeah.
You know, so that has been quite important. The President has been canvassing for the availability of that. Now, as part of that kind of canvassing and making sure that we are part of even the manufacturing platforms of this vaccine, South Africa will be able to now manufacture these vaccines going forward, which means that we are not going to have to rely on some bigger brothers to be doing this. I mean, we even went on to say the debate about the origins of these vaccines should not really be looking at geography. We should allow scientists and not want to blame China and say, no, it looks like this pandemic, this COVID-19 pandemic comes from China. We said, as nations of the world, we must hold hands together and rely on scientific proof on how this pandemic came about. In that way, we'll be able to find solutions that are necessary to save the rest of humanity.
Yeah, talking about pandemic, let's talk about the pandemic of corruption. What's happening with Zweli Mkhize? The Integrity Committee has given you a report. We're still waiting for the President to release the SIU information. Of course, there's been leaks showing how the Digital Vibes contract money from there ended up with his son and daughter-in-law. What is the ANC doing about this? This is a key minister, and you have not released a statement. You have not released this information to the public. And this boils down to communication regarding your electorate.
Well, we did say, if you read the statement of the National Working Committee released today by the Deputy Secretary General on behalf of the NWC, we did say that reports of the Integrity Commission will be saving before the upcoming National Executive Committee, because those reports can only be processed by the NEC. So the NWC doesn't have that kind of authority on reports of the Integrity Commission.
Yeah.
So we will engage with those I mean, Comrade Zweli has served before the Integrity Commission. That report will be given to the National Executive Committee when it meets later on this month.
Is he still in the cabinet?
Well, from the reports that I saw, the media reports that I saw, it appears that if they are anything to go by, it appears like he has resigned from his position as Minister of Health.
That appears reports you've seen, that's what you're saying?
Yes, because I have not engaged with Comrade Zweli. I've only seen it in reports. And you know, sometimes you comrades in the media say things from leaks.
We haven't said it, Pule. That's why I'm asking you, because I want confirmation about
Yes,
things.
but I am saying, I mean, I speak on behalf of the African National Congress. I have not had a conversation with Comrade Zweli. Reports I've seen suggest that he has tendered his resignation this afternoon.
All right. I'm going to speak to you after the cabinet reshuffle, of course, when that is announced, to get your reaction to who's been moved where. I'll appreciate your time when that...
I thought you will be interested on our candidate selection process. The fact that
I don't have time, because your president made this announcement now when you came here, so he basically took that away from you, right?
Yes.
I guess the country wants to know about the cabinet reshuffle. That's one of the most important things to us right now.
Yes.
So we had to focus on that. I'm so sorry. Maybe we'll talk about the candidate list tomorrow.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
All right. Thanks so much for that. Appreciate it. Pule Mabe, the national spokesperson for the ANC. Let's get more